morning. Good day, gentlemen. Welcome to Between the Horns. Whether you're catching us on the live stream or the pod, we're glad you are with us. College basketball is surprisingly not the only sport that has madness in March. There's madness in free agency too. The new league year is upon us. So is free agency. The Rams, they're making noise again over the next hour and a half. We might go for just half an hour this time, guys. We're going to break down that blockbuster trade. I know you are all waiting to hear. With that, JB, let's just get to it because there's a new QB in town.
Serena, I thought we agreed. We're going to start by going around the horn to say what we missed about each other most over the last couple of months.
No, didn't get the memo.
I figured, this guy Stafford had some, bigger news. But I'm glad to do that if you want.
Well, congratulations, Rams fans. You do have Matthew Stafford as your new quarterback. He's going to wear number 9, as we saw this morning, pictured in uniform for the first time. He was able to broker a deal with John Wolford to get that done. Of course, the Rams spent another haul of draft picks to acquire his services in exchange for Jared Goff. MJD and DeMarco, you guys have had a couple of months now to process this. It happened before the Super Bowl, official as of this morning. DeMarco, let's start with you. What will it be like to see Matthew Stafford in horns?
Well, it's going to be fun. This is funny, and I thought you guys were talking about the Michael Brockers trade. No, I'm just kidding. But I agree with what Brock said, and this is no knock on Jared, and you have to say thank you to everything he did for the Rams. And you went to the Super Bowl with him as a under center, as your quarterback. But I do agree with Brock. I think, and I've always thought this, that Matt Stafford was a level up over Jared Goff. And it's not that you can't have success with guys like Goff, but with Matt Stafford, I mean, you're talking about one of the elite throwers in the game. So imagine what this offense can look like with a guy that can throw it anywhere. And he has some mobility. So imagine the play calling and imagine Sean McVay, the creator, coming up with different things to attack defenses when you have a guy like Matt Stafford. So I was very, very excited when this move was announced. And now I'm happy that we can actually say it's been executed.
Maurice, I think Stafford is widely regarded as a very good NFL starter. I think public opinion is that his team, his franchise, has held him back. It's why he hasn't had postseason success. Is he capable, in your eyes, of elevating his game at age 33 to great or elite with the Rams?
Oh, no question. I think there's sometimes there wasn't a slight, and I want to kind of talk about what Brocker talked about. When it becomes physical attributes, that isn't a slight to a quarterback, right? And so Jared, yes, as talented as he was and as successful as he was, Matthew Stafford is a better thrower of the football. He can throw the ball from all angles. He has a stronger arm. He has more playing experience. So it's not a knockdown. And I would say Matthew Stafford is a tier 2 quarterback. When you talk about tier 1 guys, you talk about Patrick Mahomes, obviously Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, those kind of guys. And so we talked about it, JB, after that last playoff game in Green Bay is when Sean McVay saw what that offense could look like with a tier 1 guy. And even though I say Stafford's a tier 2, he's teetering on that tier 1, tier 2. He has tier 1 attributes where he can throw the ball. He just hasn't had the success of those tier 1 guys. And so when you see that, and we know how Sean thinks and how he feels about his offense and his system, if you can get a guy like that and you can put some more weapons around him and you can get things going, he's expected to get back to that 30, 34, 32, 33 points a game type of offense. And so you always want to upgrade. And it's never a slight. I remember when I was playing and guys were like, well, he's not as fast as Chris Johnson. No, duh. Like Chris Johnson ran a 4.2. Like I only can be as fast as these legs go, right? So I can't be upset at that. But there's other things that I can do. And so I think Jared's going to go up to Detroit and do a great job for him and what they're trying to do up there. Then Stafford's going to come down here to Los Angeles and do a phenomenal job, right? There are going to be some challenges here for him, learning a new offense, understanding the system and what Sean wants to do. We have to remember it took Jared a couple years to get that going and get comfortable. But I think you're going to see a completely different offense, a more explosive offense. You're going to see the ball go down the field more. You're going to see it's going to be tighter spirals to the ball here. You'll see some really spectacular plays that Stafford can play. My only concerns are he's had an injury history. So you have to make sure you shore up that offensive line so that he doesn't get that pressure in his face. But, for the most part, I thought this was an upgrade. And at the end of the day, this is not a slight on Jared. This is more about the Rams organization getting a very talented quarterback who was also the number 1 pick coming out of Georgia who's ready to go out and make plays.
And also you just mentioned like the rest days, that's Sean McVay's like bread and butter, right? He's always like above the neck. These are important days for veterans. And again, I mean, Sean's excited to have a veteran. He usually waits for rookies to marinate a little bit in the system. Now you bring in a guy who's got years of experience. I think it makes a lot of sense. DeMarco, yes. McVay and the offense, though, they are looking for Stafford to ignite, bring some sugar to this offense. Because there was a little bit of an inconsistency, would you say? What is the move for Sean McVay now going into, this is year 5 for McVay?
Yeah, I was reading the notes, and it says Rams offense finished 13th in passing in 2020. I think you forgot the word just, and finished tied for 22nd in scoring. You forgot the word just. So, we talk to Sean McVay before and after games. We get to hear the unvarnished truth before it goes out to the media. So, you know how he feels about his offense being mid-pack, being average. He does not like it. He's very competitive. Now, any coach wants to win, and they could care less how you win or how you get into the postseason, but calling the Rams a defensive-led football team was an indictment on him, and that's how he felt. So, and I'm with you. I think Matt Stafford has the ability to lift this offense, to lift any offense, to make this offense better, but I'm expecting it right out of the gate. There are no training wheels with a veteran like Matt Stafford. So you should be able to implement your offense, get it going, install, and then come September, hit the ground rolling. So I think that we'll get to see what this offense fully can be with a guy like Matt Stafford. And I'll say this, I think I've seen every incarnation of Matt Stafford. I've seen the gunslinger. I've seen the disciplined guy. I've seen the wild and uncoachable guy, the guy that was upset with his coaching staff, and you can tell through how he played. But this, I think, is a match made in heaven for both guys. You've got an offensive genius or a creative guy coming off the sideline in Sean McVay, and a guy who could, like you said, throw it anywhere. So I'm hoping that sort of relationship nets in 35, 40 points a game, or at least you sweep the division. Because in my opinion, I think you flipped the order as far as the elite quarterbacks or the best quarterbacks in this division. I think Matt Stafford's going to have a lot to say about who is the best quarterback in the NFC West coming in 2021.
All right, well, you gave us the ingredients then. MJD, are they a Super Bowl contender now with Matthew Stafford at helm?
I think they are. I feel like last year the Rams had a great opportunity, to go to the Super Bowl. You just had a banged-up Aaron Donald and nine-finger Jared Goff, who actually played his best game in Green Bay, and they probably should have beat him. And so in that situation, you have a quarterback now where you're not going to be on the wild card, right? When the last time the Rams did go to the Super Bowl, they've had a home game and they went to New Orleans. Well, I say, look at what Stafford has done and look what he can do, what he did in Detroit, and then try to picture that with Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods and Cooper, and then, the defense on the other side, right? Like, as much as Sean wants this to be an offensive-led team, they still have 2 Hall of Famers on the other side, right? And that, to me, is the key. As long as you can put pressure, you can affect the quarterback and protect the quarterback, you have a chance to go to the Super Bowl, and now you have a special guy there. And like DeMarco said, as great as Russell Wilson is, they have some turmoil up there in Seattle because of his words early this offseason. As great as Kyler Murray's been, they haven't beaten the Rams. And the dark horse team that we're all nervous about is the Niners. And if they stay healthy, that's going to be a great game. But I think Stafford gives the Rams the edge. And then you look out the whole NFC, the Saints are down with Drew Brees retiring. Right, the Bucs are the Bucs, so let's give them their credit. The Bucs are going to be a tough team to force to mess with, but Atlanta has a new coach. The Packers, we don't know what they're going to do. Right, luckily they signed Aaron Jones back. They have to try to go out and better their offense and throughout the draft. But the Rams have a great opportunity to really cement themselves in the upper echelon of the NFC and have some home games, and that's what you have to do in the playoffs. And so, again, if Stafford, we've like DeMarco said, I played against Matthew Stafford a couple of times. The arm talent is there. And that's just the difference. I think that's what, at the end of the day, that is the difference. And he can make every throw on the field. So Sean is going to have his whole playbook open where you can throw, the deep angle out route that's like 40 yards down the field. We've seen that throw to Kenny Golladay multiple times. The other part is he's not afraid to let it go if he sees a guy down the field in one-on-one coverage to give his guy opportunity to 50-50 ball. I think that was some of the things that Jared struggled with as well. So we'll see how it goes. But I think the Rams, just with that move alone before signing Leonard, Floyd, and all these other things that they've done, that put them where they needed to be in the upper echelon of the NFC and in the NFL.
You may even attack the defense on 3rd and 14 instead of throwing screens now.
Exactly, or run a draw.
Yeah.
MJD, you just dropped the name Leonard Floyd. I want to get there in a second. A couple quick thoughts before we wrap up the quarterback conversation. I think in terms of expectations and the Super Bowl and coming to Los Angeles, Matthew Stafford loved it in Detroit, right? Despite kind of public perception, he was in a great place there in lots of different ways. And if you watch kind of his tribute video leaving Detroit, he's coming to Los Angeles to cement his legacy and to have more football success and hopefully to get a ring. And I think that meshes well with where the Rams are. And Jalen Ramsey kind of said it best in terms of as long as he's coming here to work for a Super Bowl every day, we'll welcome him with open arms. And I think that's exactly where he and the Rams that he's joining are at. And then I think the other thing is just to try and speak for all of us quickly, thank you, Jared Goff, right? Because we could do an hour podcast on everything he's been for this organization, but he is at least in part largely responsible for some of my favorite moments as a professional, whether it's his perfect game against the Vikings on Thursday Night Football, a playoff win, an NFC championship. Thank you, Jared Goff, for the way you conducted yourself on and off the field. And now we can turn our attention to some of the other wheelings and dealings of the last 48, 72 hours, and that includes Leonard Floyd, right, coming back to join the Rams defense, which led the NFL in points allowed last year, career high 10.5 sacks for him. And the Rams made a big investment in him, DeMarco. 4 years, $64 million. It was a pass rushers market at the outset of free agency. What are realistic expectations for Floyd in his second season?
Well, I think he earned that deal. I think he earned every penny of that $64 million. But here's the thing. I think there's more there. I remember talking to Travis and Kirk pregame before a Rams home game, watching Leonard Floyd warm up in the end zone and just seeing this athletic marvel. They were throwing the football to him, and he's making one-handed grabs on the back pylon like a receiver or a tight end. And I said to Travis, why isn't this guy a star? You don't see this sort of athletic ability, on the field that much, or at least on the defensive side. Why isn't this guy a star? So eventually, as he got going, the more reps he played, the more disruptive he became, and the more of a threat he became rushing the passer. So I think there is more there. I think they paid for a 10.5 sack guy. I think that was money well spent, but I think he can actually get better. When you take your pass rush from an ice pick to a fork, there's nowhere for that quarterback to go. The ice pick being AD. Now you've got somebody coming around the edge or somebody else that you have to concern yourself with offensively, which will free up everyone else. So, yeah, I think it was important. Of all the guys, including a safety we'll get to later, of all the guys that you had a chance to re-sign or keep in-house, I thought he was the most important because there's two things you look for in the draft. You look for quarterbacks or guys that can knock quarterbacks down. So I think having Floyd next to AD, I think it's so important to put on defense, especially when you're thinking of a high-flying offense with Matt Stafford. One of these games or in this division or during the season, you're going to get into a shootout where it's an all-out passing war, and the best pass rushers win. So if you can keep a fence around your best pass rushers, then so be it. And I think, like I said, Floyd, I think there's another gear, and I think he can actually get better from what we saw last season.
Yeah, it did feel like there was only salary cap room for one of two players, right? John Johnson in the back end, for whom you have drafted replacements in theory, and Leonard Floyd, really, Maurice, who you do not have a drafted replacement for. But the other element that I think he brings to the field that works so well for the Rams is earning the right to rush the passer because of the way he held that edge and played the run. Might that have had something to do with the premium the Rams paid to keep his services?
Well, I think this, and I think Matthew Stafford comes back into play for this signing. If last year the Rams didn't play with a big lead all the time, and so the pass rush attempts were few and far between. They weren't like in 2018 where the Rams were scoring 30 points and guys can pin their ear back and go. Now, so you have Stafford, all of a sudden you're expecting, hey, we're going to be up in that 28, like I said, 34. We're going to be in those high point totals. That's going to give our guys more opportunities to go, which should give Leonard Floyd more than 10.5 sacks. I'm saying if you're in the lead and your guys can pin their ears back and go, he should be in that 12 to 15. And that's, DeMarco, you're exactly right. When you talk about his a little bit more than that. You talk about his athleticism, the right tackle position and all these tackles, they've struggled with him. And so when you have to slide your line, obviously, to Aaron Donald, that's going to leave one-on-one for him and some other guys out there to go make plays. And he capitalized on those situations. Now, yes, stopping the run is number one. You have to stop the run. You have to earn the right to rush the passer. But If you do that in the first quarter and you're up 14-0, you're up 17-0, 17-3, all of a sudden, you don't have to stop the run as much anymore, right? You get opportunities to pin your ears back and go. And I think that's what we saw when Aaron Donald had 20 and a half sacks a couple years ago. Remember, they were just rushing. They weren't like, it was like, forget the run. We know our offense is going to score, so we're just going to get to the quarterback. So I believe when you add Stafford, that's the start that stirs this whole group. That's going to give obviously Aaron Donald to have more sacks than he's had. That's going to have Leonard Floyd doing the same thing. Jalen Ramsey may get picks now all of a sudden because there's going to be more pass attempts to try to keep up with this high-flying Rams offense. And I'm really excited to see how Terrell Lewis can come along. And I'll say this. Confidence is contagious. And one of the things that you heard in the national media was that Leonard Floyd has all the tools, but it was the confidence that he didn't have in Chicago. He wasn't very confident. Well, you come down to L.A., you go around a guy who trains like a maniac, that is probably the most confident guy on the field, not the biggest, but the most confident. And all of a sudden, Leonard Floyd starts to show up. And so that confidence that AD brings to that defensive line, that Brockers brought to that defensive line, that Sebastian Joseph-Day brought to that defensive line, kind of rubbed off a little bit on Leonard Floyd, and you start to see his play pick up as the season went on. So you expect the same thing next year.
Yeah. It's worked. Also, just shout out to Chris Shula, who's now the linebackers coach, but he took a lot of time on the sidelines to work with a guy like Leonard Floyd and made sure he felt comfortable. I think those things are things that kind of was like, yep, I could see why they re-signed him. So we talked about all the new additions, but it's always kind of bittersweet. It's kind of like that Marie Kondo kind of thing. If you get a couple new things to your closet, you got to dish back out a couple things. So you can't have a packed closet. It's sloppy. So I would like to say goodbye to some of the players who have meant a lot to this franchise. JB, I know you gave a nod to Jared Goff, but John Johnson, Samson Ebicom, Gerald Everett, Malcolm Brown, Michael Brockers, Morgan Fox, Jake McQuaid. It's painful. And DeMarco, I got to tell you, and you know this, I've had a great relationship with John Johnson III, big loss. The Rams do have depth at safety, so I would love to get your thoughts on who do you kind of see filling that spot, especially because we're losing not just a leader, a great safety, but also he was the defensive signal caller.
Oh, man, I love the sport, hate the business. You can't afford them all. That's just NFL economics. And at some point, some guys have to leave. They get paid. They have to go other places. So I think John Johnson III is every bit of that. He's a guy that you want. Who doesn't want John Johnson III as their safety? It's just the economics of it all. But, yeah, he's going to be tough or near impossible to replace because of how much experience he has and how much he was rooted in this great run, this Super Bowl run, this window that was open. His signature is all on that run. So that's going to be hard. But look, you've got guys waiting in the wings. And I'll say this about Taylor Rapp or to Taylor Rapp if he's listening. Look, you don't have to be friends with the guys you work with. You don't have to listen to the same music. You don't have to dress the same. All you have to do is show up and play as hard as they do. So, quit trying to fit in off the field and just fit in on the field and everything will work out and stay healthy. But trying to replace John Johnson III is going to be rough. It's not every day you turn it over or turn over your play calling to a safety, to a guy in the back end that's smart, that can get everyone lined up, adjusted, and play your position at the same time. It's tough for linebackers.
Yeah.
It's even harder for safeties to do. So I would say you've done it twice, and I don't expect you to do it again, especially with this group of safeties. So you don't have to worry about the leadership aspect. All you have to worry about is playing your position if you're a young guy. But you do have depth. You have guys that have played. You're prepared if you're Les Snead and Sean McVay. You're prepared for John Johnson III moving on. I think we all kind of knew at some point he was going to be – you couldn't afford him. So you got some guys ready to play and have game experience. Now you have to get as much and put as much into it as he did to be as good as he was on the field. So leadership, I think that's going to come from some other guys. But as far as top-end, top-flight safety play, I think the guys you have on the roster have a chance to be pretty good safeties and ascend to where John Johnson III was before he left.
Yeah, JJ signed a 3-year deal with Cleveland, so thank you for all the work you've done. Another great veteran, Malcolm Brown, now gone. Maurice, how do you kind of see this backfield shaking out with Malcolm Brown going to Miami?
Well, I think Cam Akers takes over that role. He becomes that workhorse that we talked about. We saw that late in the year. It seemed like he kind of got himself in the position where he could be on the field at all times. And obviously health is the number one thing. And don't be surprised if you see the Rams use a late round pick on a back just to kind of keep that room going. Yeah, you're going to lose a lot, though, with Malcolm Brown. And it's that protection part that we talked about where he was at his best, where he can get right behind the center and then pick up that A-gap blitz and then the pocket to stay intact. And so you're going to need that from everyone. I think this is going to be a group effort, both with the front office, the coaching staff, and then whoever they put in that situation to take that up. And that's going to be tough. Again, it's another leadership role. He was the older guy in the room. He was the guy that kind of got the guys going. And so you lose a lot of leadership. And DeMarco, you're exactly right. You can't pay everybody, right? That you have to pick and choose who you want, and you let guys go. But good luck to Malcolm Brown down there in Miami. They need a back, so he'll have a chance to be that every down back that he's always wanted, unless they go and get a guy. But I think Cam Akers showed that later in the season that he is the guy that they drafted first overall or their first pick last year. And so to me, that's what, at the end of the day, when you show that you can do that, especially in the playoffs get you paid. They'll get you a chance to play, and they're going to get you paid. And he showed up in both those playoff games, so it's going to be exciting to see.
All right, I know it's really exciting to kind of follow all the transactions as the legal tampering period opens, and then these deals become official, and teams like the Patriots are doing just things that we've never seen before. But just a reminder to our audience that discipline usually wins the season this time of year, right? There's very little historical support for big spending this time of year turning in to big results in the fall. So kudos to the Rams brass for kind of having a plan and sticking to it. I know that seeing your division rivals make all kinds of headlines can be a little bit unnerving, but let's not try to win this thing in March. Let's try and win it in December and January. All right, before we wrap up the show, let's take a look at some updated draft needs after the first wave of free agency. As of now, the Rams have a half dozen picks, 3 in the top 103. So MJD, what do you think is their biggest need going into April's draft?
It's going to be addressing the interior of that offensive line, making sure that you have a center. You go out and get your high-priced quarterback, you have to protect them. I think that is the biggest need. From there, possibly another tight end. Again, that 2 tight end system, 3 receivers, 2 tight end system worked really well. Gerald Everett did a great job being a mismatch in certain situations, but the glaring need is really fixing that interior offensive line and making sure that they're stout and ready to go.
DeMarco, protect the quarterback or give him weapons to target?
I go with the second. That and edge rusher, but definitely give him weapons. If you can, find a way to supplement that receiving core with a get up and go get it receiver. I don't know if that guy is available where you're selecting, or maybe you have to find a diamond in the rough, really do your scouting. But yeah, that would help a guy like Matt Stafford. Think about his best years in Detroit, who he was throwing to on the other side. But edge rusher is something we've been talking about for what? Going on 3 seasons now, 2.5 seasons at least. And I think the situation just got a little more difficult now that Samson Ebukam is gone. And he was a guy that we considered a run stuffer more than a pass rusher. But now that ability is gone, you have to find a way to supplement that. So, yeah, keep churning that side of the roster until you find an edge rusher. But I agree, man. A tall receiver that can jump, or an edge rushing guy, whoever is there in the 2nd or 3rd rounds, I would make that premium pick in a heartbeat.
Real quick.
Yeah.
I just said middle linebacker too. I still think you want to keep working that part as well. I know Kenny Young played lights out. Micah Kaiser's coming back. But remember who came down in nickels in sub situations to play linebacker? JJ. So you have to continue to rebuild that position, or not rebuild, but rework and try to figure out to find a guy that can do all those things well, because one of the issues that we have here is that these tight ends, like this Pitts kid out of Florida, that's a receiver. But because he has a tight end designation, you're going to put a linebacker on him. You don't have a guy that can cover those guys.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of work to be done before April 29th, I would assume. Busy scouts, busy free agency, and busy us. Thank you. That's a wrap for our free agency episode of Between the Horns. Lots more to come. We're just getting started. So make sure you keep your eye locked on the Rams platforms to stay up to date on everything you need to know. And if you haven't downloaded the Rams app, go ahead. Do that right now. If Matthew Stafford under center for the Rams doesn't get you excited, then we've got some issues because you're going to want to see him in person. Just wait and come see us at SoFi Stadium in 2020. Y'all have all seen this stadium. It's gorgeous. You can get your season tickets at therams.com/2021. Maurice Jones-Drew, DeMarco Farr, JB Long, Serena Morales. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. It's great to see your faces. And thanks for watching.
Yes.
We'll see you next time on Between the Horns.
I hope Detroit gets Hard Knocks.
They're for sure going to